I'm Michelle Graves, your host on today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm glad to have you here. Now, at The Power of Money, we are interested in three things happening. First, we want you to get the necessary education so that you and your family can make the decisions that will impact positively on you in your financial life. The second thing is that you be empowered to prosper. I only want the best for you. And you can only get that if you have education and then the drive to make it happen. And the third thing that is so important to me is that you recognize that life is more than a journey and that you be energized so that you can begin to participate in the truly joyous experience of living. So, here's to empowerment, here's to education, and here's to energy. I'm Michelle Graves, your host, Power of Money, and here we go. And here we go. It is my joy, delight, honor, and privilege to be on your radar for the next hour of The Power of Money. Again, I bring you greetings as your host, Michelle Graves, affectionately known for the last 3 decades, yes, as the Money Lady. I started off this trail as a young whippersnapper chick, and now I am rolling into my senior years full of wisdom. Hey, you don't get wisdom unless you get some experience, okay? Full of grace, which is I don't judge anybody, I don't fault anybody, I just pray for you often. And love, which connects everything together, makes it all worthwhile. So those are my themes as I'm moving into my older years. Certainly not a problem. I am just grateful every single day. So on the subject today, I'm going to be talking about what to do when you face the loss of a loved one. And I'm going to deal with this very difficult subject because statistics are very clear. At this point in history, there are many, many, many seniors who are transitioning out of this particular earth realm. There are young people, as always. The numbers are a little higher, but it is really about so many of us after the age of 50 will be impacted by the loss of a loved one. And it goes beyond just simply the mechanics of planning a funeral and doing all of the obituary, family notifications, church notification, or community notification. It goes much deeper than that, because every time you deal with the loss of a loved one, you are getting a sneak preview of your own loss. That's right, viewers. Every time we sit at a funeral, get a word about someone who has left, it hurts us because we begin to think about our own lives. And again, I only say this, and the purpose of this show is to educate and empower you. It is not to take you down memory lane and have you crying and experiencing discomfort about this difficult subject. But it is most important that you at least know what is required to get through this. All of us, as you grow older, have been touched by the loss of a loved one through death. It doesn't matter how they ended. The fact is that it is irreparable, it is final, and we are left as the living grappling with, what do I do now? Whether it's a father or a mother or a spouse or a child or a friend or someone connected in your community, it still is a painful experience, giving you cause to go, hoo-wee, where do I go with this? And it becomes a where do I go and why with all of us, because whether you believe in reincarnation, which I don't, but there are many that do, or not, for most of us, the finality of it is what is so devastating. We cannot go back and remedy or rectify any things that were or were not done with that individual, which is why I'm talking about this to you today with the hope that you will sit down and listen, okay? Even if it's difficult, I need you to listen so that you will know what you need to do to get through this with some degree of, I don't even know how to say it, stability, some degree of comfort because you understand how it goes. I just went through a very difficult situation with a dear friend of mine's loss of her mother. And while I will not bring up names, I will just simply say that it put me right back there again, made me look at some things again regarding my own family and looking at her family. So let's kind of rewind. I'm going to take you through some steps. If you are the immediate family, which means a wife, next of kin, children, and you are responsible for that person, then when you are notified of their transition, and it can be in the form of, if they're in a nursing facility, they will contact you or they will let you know that the person is getting ready to leave. And at that point, you will have to make some decisions. One of them being, do I want to be there? Do I want to call all the family to be there immediately to say their goodbyes? It is a fact. It's not an anecdote. It is a fact that many people will not close their eyes and move on and transition without seeing their loved ones, particularly children who have not been on the scene. You'd be amazed, or maybe you wouldn't, at the number of people out here today who have not seen their children or family members in years. Can you believe that? Can you believe the heartache that they endure? Mothers that have never seen their sons and daughters, or fathers who've never been able to see their sons and daughters. It is a problem out here. I'm just going to tell you, it's a problem. I don't know, God knows I don't know what would cause an individual to go through life and never see their parents. What? The one that birthed you, the one that, and a lot of people say, well, you don't understand, mom's crabby or dad's difficult. It doesn't matter when they're old. It doesn't, because the days ahead of them are much shorter than the days behind them. So even a kindly visitation just to tell them that you love them would be helpful. Many seniors, and I'm just being open with you, many seniors hesitate about transitioning, knowing that they're looking at death, but they're so guilt-ridden and they feel so badly about the lives that they've lived. Viewers, I got news for everybody. Nobody gives us a book on parenting. Nobody. And culturally, some groups of people are more intense than others in the area of discipline, order, all those things. Many homes did not have visible affection, meaning dad did not kiss and hug mom, and mom did not kiss and hug the children, and everything. And of course, we do know now that there are psychological effects on people that experienced that they literally don't know where to go as they go through life because their foundations were so muddy. We know that in that generation, the ones that are transiting so quickly, we do know that alcoholism was a big issue in that generation. I'm talking about people in their late 70s going older. They drank, they smoked cigarettes, not blunts, cigarettes, and did things that were totally unwholesome. The children were exposed to this, and it had an impact. It had an impact. It could not have been any other way. And therefore, many of the children, when they become adults, they moved on to something else. We know that many times parents, that's right, those of you that are older, parents were involved in extramarital affairs, as if their children couldn't see it and didn't know it. And many women and men wreaked havoc on the psyche of their children. And now as they are looking back and realizing finally and owning it, taking responsibility for it, which is, I was a miserable parent, but that is all I knew. And rather than trying to reach out to the children for forgiveness, which is something I strongly encourage those of you that are watching, if that sounds like your autobiography that I'm just talking about, then maybe you need to do an intervention. That's what they call them, intervention, which is I'm intervening over this mess that I caused. And I'm going before my children and family members, and I am going to apologize. Whoa! How hard is that? Very hard. Because your pride rises up. Well, blah, blah, blah. Yes, you do. You need to sit down and you need to tell them the truth. You need to tell them the truth because they need to know that you are sorrowful about what you did to yourself first and then to your family. So you got this going on. You're facing the death of a loved one. They've not crossed over. Family members don't want to say goodbye. The person that is dying is retroflecting on everything and wondering, how am I going to get through this? And do I want to face my Maker? Oh, did I say it? So many people that I have been involved with in those last minutes, moments, they are terrified of meeting their Maker. Because you know what? Game over. Ha! Game over. We do know, if we believe in scriptures, that you're going to face your Maker. And so this person is struggling with, in addition to being sick, in many cases, they're struggling with the memories of their past and the prospect of not having a very good encounter with the sovereign Almighty God. That is frightening, because you talk about not knowing. That's a big not knowing. What do I do? How do I respond? Well, I will share with those of you who are laboring with a parent or even a grandparent that was, as I call them, little critter. You was a critter. How do you do it? You gotta talk to them. You gotta tell them. You gotta tell them. Billy's not coming. Brian's not coming. Sally's not coming. And you got to be willing to tell them why. They know why, but perhaps they'll open up to you and share with you their story before they cross over. No apologies, because at that point in the script, it doesn't really matter. They're gone. A lot of people don't want to, they say, oh, I don't want to bring that up. And I'm like, oh, but you must. You must give them an opportunity before they cross over to experience healing. Is it possible when a person is dying? Yes, it is. They can leave earth in peace with the knowledge that they have cleaned their act up and tried to get it right. If you can get family members to be a part of this, that would be amazing. Absolutely amazing. For them to be able to tell you from their own heart that they love you. That's what I admired about the now deceased President George Walker Bush Sr. And the fact that he told his son by phone, his son did not get there in time to see his father cross over. But the father was able to tell his son how proud he was of his son and that he loved his son. That is powerful, okay? It's so much better than laying in a hospital or in your bed and no final anything. No final anything. Lock, stock, sealed. Done. So when you're facing the death of a loved one, the very first thing I try to get from people, and it's beyond the money. I mean, let's just be open about it. If they have a will, that's the preferred way. You can get a will done on site today. You can get a will done. And don't try outputting on internet. You don't know if the language is acceptable in the state that the individual is going to die in, and that brings its own problems. But many, many organizations will send an attorney to, in fact, take care of that. That's just a click, 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 click type of thing, having it witnessed properly. And if it's an attorney, you don't have to have it notarized. But the acknowledgement that you do have things that you want in place and done. You have an obligation to make sure that that is done. Reason being is that if you don't have it done, you're going to see a big fat mess. Why? Because without a will, you fall into the legal category of intestate, which simply means that you died without a will, and therefore the state of your domicile, which is where you've died, that state now has the responsibility of wrapping up your affairs. And believe me, they will wrap them up. You may not like the way it looks, but you won't be here, but your family will feel it. They'll feel it because of how it's done. So again, that's something that you can ask them before they cross over. If you haven't, where is the will? Where are oh, I don't have one. Well, let's get that done. Let's get that done. There's no value to, at this point, a power of attorney document, which names someone else as that person to represent that individual who is dying, because at the point of death, the power of attorney is null and void. It has no legal standing. The only thing that matters at that point will be the estate of the decedent, the person that has crossed over. So I bring this up to you because this is also a part of that preparing for the end, making sure all things are in place and done. The emotional component, making sure that the immediate family has been notified so that they can reorder their lives. And I say their lives because when a transition takes place, everybody in close circle, whether they like that individual or not, are immediately affected. And it does have an effect. So the notification so that people can come. And be aware, and I'm telling you this from hard, cold experience, Be aware that when family members show up, when that person is leaving, it's just a weird thing. Some people do well. Some people become very hostile. Some people just become unlike themselves, the self that you thought you knew, as they deal with this occurrence. It will have lifelong impact on everyone who is involved. Even those that did not come are going to be impacted, because that is a human life that will no longer be on earth. And the impact of that human life on them is beyond measure. In most cases, believe me when I tell you, you just don't know people. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know what their life story looks like. You're left to sit on the side trying to put the pieces together. But as I tell people, it's not your pieces to put together. That's their life. That's how they're coping with it. And the best thing that you can do is be compassionate and to pray. Compassion, because transition is just, anyone that says, oh, it was so nice, I'm looking at them like, really? How is it so nice when you get to look at another person going to a place you're getting ready to go to, if you keep living? Right, because if you keep living, you're going. If you die, you're gone. How is that so? It tears at the heart. It really does. It tears at the heart. So, you got everybody gathered. Hopefully, amends have been made prior to this. But if not, this might be a good time to make amends, to tell that person that you love them and that you forgive them, so that they can go home in peace. It may be a good time to reconnect with your brothers and sisters. It's a sad story that we always get together for funerals and weddings. People you haven't seen in ages come for funerals. And again, it's all related to the occurrence of a life event that cannot be reversed. Once they're gone, they cannot be resurrected. And here you are. And I know if you read scripture, you say, no. Lazarus was resurrected. And I will tell you, and if God shows up, God can resurrect them too. But for the record, I don't know of anybody who has truly been expired that comes back. That's a done thing. So, you're dealing with that. First order of the day is you give notification to whomever you have selected to pick up the body. And I'm going to tell you something. Seeing that body, which is no longer warm, no longer soft to the touch, but it's now hard. That's what happens when life leaves you. You are aware that that's no longer a living, breathing human being. It is now a corpse, which is what morticians, funeral directors, and those in that industry, it's a corpse. And they will come and get it. You have to give them notification. Hopefully you've notified them to let them know this is imminent. If a person's under hospice care, hospice will typically let you know that the days are short and that their demise is imminent. With a lot of people, before they leave, there's a burst of energy where they're going to do this and they're going to do that and they're zooming. I mean, you're like, wait a minute. How you be so sick 1 minute and now you're bursting with, I said, it's the last push. It's the last push. They want so desperately to be without pain, to be without suffering, all those things. And the body, ironically, gives them a last hurrah. It does. They become animated in so many cases, talkative, want to share things. But as I tell folks, put a clock on that one, because that last hurrah is going to be the last hurrah. So you want to try to get all things in order and in place for that. So the person has transitioned. The body is no longer soft, warm, inviting, but is hard. The family members have dispersed, and usually there's one person, maybe two, brother and sister, but sometimes just one, who steps forward by design, meaning the parent wanted them to do that, or by volunteer, which is I'll do it. I've got the time and the energy to do it. And let me share something with all of you. You want to know why funeral directors charge? And for the record, I don't think they charge enough. I don't. And the reason I say that, they are in the middle of a catastrophe. And it doesn't matter how well planned it is. Many times there's pushback from family and others. Irreparable pushback. And the poor little funeral director, he's like, wait a minute, I'm just here to orchestrate this so that everything goes smoothly. But there is a backdrop of all kinds of other things that happen. Okay, and let's start with the basics. And that is that unless you have done a pre-need, and I stress this for everyone, if your parents do not have a pre-need agreement, including you, with the funeral home of record that you want to handle your affairs, that you want to make sure your expenses are itemized, the things you want done are codified and clearly in writing, whether you choose to be cremated or whether you choose to do a full burial. Those things are already in place. The cemetery, which is not the funeral home, the cemetery has already been paid. Incidentally, cemeteries do not take your insurance. They take money. My goodness, money. For you to go in that box, to go in a hole, you're going to end up in a vault and something on top of it, a marker. That's all the cemetery, and that's all by contract, and that has nothing to do with your life insurance assignment for your burial. Separate entity, separate agreement. If you are part of the military, there are wonderful facilities throughout the United States that are owned by the military, including Arlington Memorial in Washington, D.C., but Dayton, Ohio has a memorial. There's a facility in Indiana. There are burial sites for veterans all over this country, and the burial is at no cost to the veteran. His wife can be buried there too. No cost. So again, these things have to be put in motion so that you don't have a last minute frenzy of trying to figure out what you're going to do. That is major, 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 major. So I bring that to the table right up front. If you don't have pre-need and everything is crisp, and I cannot overemphasize, listen, I've heard people say, well, that's kind of dangerous. What if they run away with my money? And I say to them, trust me when I tell you, that industry is so tightly controlled and regulated by the state, that's not going to happen. That is point blank not going to happen. They have rules, regulations, requirements. Your money isn't going anywhere. If you did a pre-need where you assigned your life insurance contract to them as payment, excellent, excellent. This will go so easy. But if you are like the majority of people who did not believe that this was the big one, as Red Fox would say, didn't believe, and now your family's stuck with trying to figure out what you have and what you'll need, then that's going to be a challenge in the worst possible way. Let me give you a sidebar. I was at a store a couple of months ago, and there had been a death. And the woman next to me that was shopping was on her cell phone, and she was hotter than fish grease. Why? Because apparently the family figured that she had the money and that she could pay for the funeral. Now, why didn't the decedent pay for the funeral? I don't know. It's so sad today. The decedent probably assumed that the family would work it out. Well, the family was not working it out because nobody wanted to pay for that funeral. And she said, how can you assume that I have that kind of money? It was going to cost $8,000. Who has $8,000? And the other person would have said something. You don't have that on your credit card? Wait a minute. Don't be talking to me about how I do my money. Now, this is not a good thing, but it is a common thing. And I didn't offer up anything. I didn't feel it was my place. Nobody asked me. I don't go volunteering anything anymore unless a person asks me. I didn't know them. They didn't ask. And she was caught up in the heat of the moment. But it brought to my thinking, here we go again. Person dies, no family money. People are now being stressed and angry because they don't know what they're going to do. And I hate to even fast forward that scenario I was witness to because I don't think it ended well. I just don't. I didn't get a sense that it was going to end well at all. But what you can do, as I said, going back to that pre-need, if you haven't taken care of that, if your parents haven't taken care of that or your loved ones, make that a to-do. Don't play with that. Believe me, if a person is living past 60, things should be in order. If you're retired, you don't have any excuse. You can get this stuff done affordably. I mean, just call who you want to assist and ask them what is necessary and required. So, I'm sure that listening to this today, hopefully you've been provoked to get it together, so that somebody else doesn't. Casket prices are expensive. Wood is expensive. You can cremate, but again, it's more affordable, but a lot of people culturally don't like the concept of their grandmother being cremated or their mother. People have all kinds of conceptions and preconceptions about cremation. Cremation is simply the disposition of the body by way of heat, fire. The body is mainly water, and what's left after a very simple procedure, literally, is what we call cremains, which are what's left, mainly bone matter. And those cremains go into an urn, or they'll put them in a little bag, typically until you decide what you want to do. A lot cheaper, but again, no guarantees. You got to get all that stuff done ahead of time for the optimal outcome. So, I've talked to you a little bit about what that looks like and what you need to do. So, you're in the nursing home, you're at home, or you're someplace else, and this person is officially gone. So you call the mortician, hopefully things are in order, and they show up with a body carrier. Typically, they'll put the body on a gurney, fasten them in, and cover them, face to toe. They'll cover them with a blanket. Some use a tarp, but they are fastened in so that they won't fall. Not that they're moving, but they don't want any mishaps, and they will cart them away. From my own experience, I will tell you that is the beginning of a painful journey. seeing that loved one covered up. You don't see their face, you don't see their body. All you see is a blanket, and they're gone. But just because they're gone doesn't mean the process is over, because now that they're gone, you've got to deal with, if you're in a nursing home, you've got to deal with the disposition of their property, which would be their clothing, any diamonds, any rings, anything they have in that room has to be removed efficiently and quickly. And I will tell all of you watching, if you don't remove that, they will. And that's not a real good feeling, to come back the next day and it's like your loved one never even existed. It really is. But that their business. And at the point that person is no longer on the scene, they have to move that into another place. They have to clear it out to make room for the next person. In the situation that I was in, 4 people in that unit had died that day. And it was a very sorrowful occurrence. Why? Because several of them didn't have anybody. They didn't have anybody there to make sure their contents were gone, etc. And again, as I say, viewers, if you do not take care of that then, don't worry, it will be taken care of. You may not like it, but again, those facilities are in business. And that is bed space that's now available for somebody else. And they want to move it on quickly, new sheets, clean sheets, and it's a business. It is. And no matter how well-intentioned you may think they are, it's still a business. They've got to make room for the next paying customer, so to speak. So, thinking wisely, you've cleared out everything that is theirs, everything, and you've made some decisions as to who will receive the clothing, etc. And I have to say again that with the women's clothing, you can always donate to homeless women's shelters. Warm things, towels, all those things will come to good use, okay? With men, particularly if it's a veteran, they have facilities in the region you live where they accommodate homeless veterans or veterans in transition. So if it's a male family member that crossed over that has suits and other things, there are organizations that will come and get this stuff. You don't have to wait around to donate. Now, if you are the surviving spouse of an individual who has crossed over, there's no need to move property quickly. But when you're ready, I'm letting you know there are resources. It may be too painful for you to open up a closet and look at their clothes. And for those of you that haven't experienced that, keep living. But for those of you that know that you've got a closet full of clothes and jewelry and stuff, and your mate is gone, take your time. Take your time. Ask for help if you need it. I know with the veterans, they will actually come and take all of that stuff off of rods and move it on. Shoes, socks, T-shirts, out. They will do it. But if you're not emotionally ready for that, then don't call them. Call them when you are emotionally ready and you're ready to do something else. But I'm letting you know there are resources and to anticipate. Now, if you're in a nursing home, when your spouse crosses over, you must get their stuff out. I mean, that's a high priority. Call your daughters, call the nurses' aides, get that stuff out. Because in 24 hours, typically, they're going to get it out. Because they have the staff to do it. Now, mind you, they don't know what's sentimental, what's not. They just move all of it. Okay? You're like, where's my stuff. And they're like, we didn't know you wanted it, so we moved it out. So that's the second thing. Once they're gone, you've got to make moves to get their possessions out of that facility. If you're at home, there's less of a press and a stress. But again, just know that that day does await you. Now, after that's done, you typically will need to call the funeral home to make arrangements to deal with this funeral and what is involved, including notices, publications, and all of these different things that make this memorial service so special. And why is it special? I'm going to tell you something why it's special. Because that is a human being that lived and breathed on earth just like you are. And if you were a loved one, you would like to remember them in a positive and favorable way. Those memories will live on at least one generation. Now, after that, 20 years, I don't know. Generation flips every 20 years. But at least for 20 years, you will have the benefit of knowing that there are family members and others who will retain thought. If it's longer than 20 years, I cannot even promise, because time moves like that. But you've got to work on the obituary. You've got to give notification to family members from all over. You have to make a decision whether you want it published in the newspaper. That's expensive. Just telling you up front, to publicize a death in the newspaper can cost you anywhere from $400 up just for the notice. Today, so many funeral homes are putting deaths on their websites, but what if you didn't know the person died? That's happened to me quite a few times, where I did not know that the person was gone and saw the obituary. And it was like, what? I didn't know. And trying to scurry, because you would like to be there to give your condolences to the family. Now, for those of you that are on the outside, going to a funeral is your choice. Because truthfully, the family's not going to remember a whole lot, because they're in shock. They are in shock, okay, because a piece of them left. So your presence, you can always sign up in the welcome book, which is a permanent record that you were there. But be advised that that is not the time to engage in small talk and chatter. That's a very solemn time. It's a very, very difficult time. People try to make light of it, but it's not easy. So again, as a part of the funeral planning, give people the option of signing in. Most funeral directors do anyway, but give them an option, encourage them to sign in. And do not, please, make a note that no bunch of chatter. Just, I'm so sorry for your family. And end of story. Or I really loved Helen, or I really thought Mark was a kind man. And end of story. And encourage them to take that in advisement. And for those of you that are viewing this show, you take it in advisement as well. A funeral is not a great gathering celebration. A funeral is just what it is. You are honoring the life of someone who has gone on. You say, oh, they're in a better place. How do you know? Oh, they went to heaven. How do you know? Oh, don't go there. Don't even bring it up. Don't bring it up. You just know that for the time they were here, they were honorable people, hopefully. A lot of them weren't even honorable. But the fact that they lived on earth as a human and participated in the life experience makes the memorial special. So as the person planning, those things are important. What do you want in the obituary? Do not ever leave out family members. Biggest thing I have run into with people doing obituaries. How do you leave out family members? Immediate family members like sons, daughters, grandchildren, and their spouses, leaving out their brothers and sisters and their wives or husbands. Even if they predeceased the person, to not mention them is offensive and can cut deep because everybody's reading it and all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute, where is he and where, what? Don't forget that. Everybody is a part of a big fat family and they need to be noticed and acknowledged in obituary. Making decisions as to who's going to order the service. A funeral home can do that marvelously. They do it for a living. But if you have special people and things you want included, you can have that done. A eulogy does not have to be read. It can be published in the program. And they could read it themselves quietly. Remarks about the deceased, again, keep it simple. It's amazing how many people do not honor the time rule. You say, you can't talk more than 3 minutes, and they get up there and they just talk and they talk. And it's just like, really? This is the most awful situation, and you're up here babbling on and on. If you can identify people that want to make remarks, I would say limit it to 3. And by all means, do not have an entourage of pastors standing up talking about this person. Not that I'm against pastors and what they have to say, or leaders and what they have to say. But again, my experience has taught me that the family is going through a lot. And for you to sit up and prolong it just makes it even worse. In retrospect, they're not going to be happy about it. How do you want to do presentment? It's up to you. If you're going to be doing an urn, you can put the urn there. You can put videos. They got PowerPoints today. They got a lot of stuff going. But just remember that you're going to pay for that because it is a production. You're going to have to pull together all those pictures because they all have to be scanned and detailed. And if you don't have the strength to do it, don't do it. I mean, really, don't do it to yourself. Do the best you can. And if you got a beautiful picture of mom and dad, you can do that. I don't know how much people remember with regard to all of those videos and pictures and all that. I don't know. I cannot say, but I can say that that's something you need to look at very carefully in terms of your ability to do it, the time it takes, the energy it requires, and you just may want to be by yourself for a little bit. You know, people say, oh, come on out and enjoy yourself. Excuse me? What do you want me to enjoy myself doing? This may be a time for your family to share and just to be with one another in quiet. Just quiet. Don't have to say anything because you knew the person very well. This also may be an occasion for reconciliation. And I'm putting this out here because I look at funerals as an opportunity to heal broken hearts, to heal crushed dreams, and to reminisce about the good things about the family. Now, if you've got one of those families where you don't have any of that going on, then don't put yourself in a position to go there. But I'm going to challenge all of you, every last one of you, the power of forgiveness during difficult times. The power to say, I forgive you. The power to say, I'm so sorry that I hurt you. The power to say, I love you. The power to say, I want only the best for you. And mean it. And mean it, not loose words being tossed here and fro to make people feel better, but heartfelt, genuine words meant to heal broken hearts and to bridge discontent and disconnectivity and the insensitivities that so many families have engaged in. This is a great opportunity to do that. So don't miss it. Don't miss it at all. I speak with you openly today as the money lady. Yes, funerals involve a little bit more than paying the mortician. We still have to deal with assets and allocation of resources and things that that person had, but many times that person has nothing but the memories of their family and a future hopefully full of forgiveness, kindness, empathy, and love. I'm Michelle Graves, your host on today's segment of The Power of Money, talking about what happens when you're faced with the loss of a loved one. I hope this has helped you and given you food for thought, because that means everything to me. God bless you today, and I'll see you the next time. Take care.